Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the Johns Hopkins School of Education Digital Age Learning and Educational Technology virtual webinar. My name is Sion John, and I'm the Assistant Director of Admissions at the Johns Hopkins School of Education. Also presenting today, we have Professor and Faculty Lead, Dr. Jim Diamond, and Assistant Professor, Dr. Christopher Devers. So before we get started, I would like to cover a few housekeeping topics. First, today's webinar is being recorded. We will be able to share a link with you after the event is complete. We welcome you to revisit the content yourself and share it with your colleagues or friends who might be interested in the program as well. Also, please take a second to see if your mic is on mute right now. Please have your mic on mute at all times during the presentation. There will be a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Please type your question in the chat box, and Dr. Diamond, Dr. Devers, and I will answer your questions. Next, I would like to share the agenda for today's virtual webinar. We will kick off the presentation sharing an overview of the Johns Hopkins School of Education. Then Dr. Diamond, Dr. Devers will introduce themselves and discuss an overview and details of the Digital Age Learning and Educational Technology program. Lastly, I'll wrap it up with admissions requirements and leave the floor open for questions at the end. Again, please keep in mind to type your questions in the chat box at the end of the presentation. To start, quick facts about the Johns Hopkins School of Education. We are one of 9 schools at Johns Hopkins University. We began offering college courses for teachers in 1909 and then became our own school in 2007, and we just celebrated our 10th anniversary last year. For school enrollment, we have approximately 2,600 students. All programs leading to licensure is approved by the Maryland State Department of Education. We have campuses in Baltimore, Maryland, Columbia, Maryland, and offer classes online. We are very proud to share that the Johns Hopkins School of Education is consistently ranked one of the top schools in education by the U.S. News and World Report. At this time, I am going to hand the floor over to Dr. Jim Diamond and Dr. Christopher Devers, and they are going to introduce themselves and also present on the Digital Age Learning and Educational Technology program.
Okay, thank you very much, Sion. And thank you to our participants for attending this afternoon and expressing interest in our program. As Sion mentioned, my name is Jim Diamond. I'm an assistant professor, and I'm the lead faculty member for the Digital Age Learning and Educational Technology program at Hopkins. For short, we call the program DALIT. Before we give an overview of the program, let me say a little bit about myself so you have some sense of who you're listening to. And then I'm going to ask my colleague Chris Devers, another faculty member, as Sion mentioned, to introduce himself. I've been teaching in the area of educational design and technology for many years now, close to 15. But I just recently became the head of this program last August, as a matter of fact. Before that, I worked as a research scientist for quite a few years at a nonprofit research and development organization. My research for most of my career has been in the broad area of digital media and learning, but my focus has been in the area of game-based learning. So I'm especially interested in how young people learn using games, especially role-playing games. And I'm also interested in how educators can use gameplay data to make determinations about student progress. Here at Hopkins, I teach courses in games and simulations for learning, instructional design, and I also lead our capstone project, which I'll talk a little bit about in a little bit. Chris, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Chris Devers, Professor of Education at Hopkins. This is my 10th or 11th year being a professor. Before this, I was at Indiana Wesleyan University, where I was the Director of Research as well as a Professor of Education. Before that, University of San Diego, I was Professor of Education there. Did my PhD at University of Illinois in Curriculum and Instruction, where I really studied diversity, technology, and cognition. And before that, Purdue University, did a master's in undergrad. My undergrad is engineering technology education, and master's is in educational administration. And for most of my career, I'm really interested in asking very specific questions about technology and learning. I'm not very interested in understanding broad questions like, are laptops in class better than not laptops in class? Other people answer those questions. I'm more interested in answering questions like, what is the environment in which a laptop could be successful in a classroom? Or what are the components of using a laptop in a classroom that are successful? A lot of my research is focused on more specific questions, and I've more recently done research in ways in which we use technology to enhance early childhood education. I've spent a lot of my career looking into video learning and ways in which we can externally apply metacognitive techniques in order to improve more learning that happens in a video. For example, a student watches a video and they self-explain while watching a video. What does that do to the learning from the video? I've also really been involved in scholarship of teaching and learning, which is taking research that we might do in a lab and applying it in a classroom and determining kind of how that works. And then I've also done a little bit with student success, using smartphones to nudge students using growth mindset and social belonging in order to help students be more successful. So generally, my research has to do with ways in which technology can help impact learning and ways in which we use evidence-based metacognitive techniques in order to have technology support that. I'm really excited to be at Hopkins. This is my first semester there, and Jim and I have worked pretty hard to understand the program and to hopefully design some changes in the program which will really help benefit students as they go forward.
Okay, thanks, Chris. It's terrific to hear the questions that you're asking and the topics in which you're interested. I think it's really, really helpful for our participants, because you start to get a sense of the kinds of questions you're going to be asking with faculty in class, and the types of topics you'll investigate and the skills you'll start to develop. Let me take another minute before we go into the program overview. I want to take a minute to tell you what I think makes the DALIT program special and makes us a bit different from other programs. So let me talk about our mission and our vision. So our mission in the DALIT program is to advance professionals in K-20, right? So primary, secondary, post-secondary education, as well as out-of-school education and formal learning, adult education, in instructional technology, instructional design, and other related fields. We're interested in preparing professionals to strategically design, evaluate, manage, and implement digital learning and instructional processes and resources to empower all learners. So our faculty and our staff carry out this mission by teaching courses that introduce students to foundational theories in cognitive science and the learning sciences, as well as courses that familiarize students with critical perspectives on the role of tech in learning in society. We implement a curriculum that prioritizes active learning with an emphasis on activities that foster design and evaluative thinking practices. And we help our students to expand their existing professional networks as well as build new ones. And we pursue this mission as a program in order to fulfill our vision of graduating professionals, educational technologists, designers, educators, education leaders, with humanistic dispositions and who are critical systems thinkers. So prepared to create, evaluate, and use evidence-based tools in teaching and assessment practices in pursuit of learner development, social justice, and equity in education. And the last thing I'll say is by humanistic, I mean keeping human beings and their needs and goals and individual developmental trajectories at the center of design and problem solving, right? So in Dalit, technology implementation is always a means to that end. Okay, so some details about the program. It is a purely online program, so all courses are taken online, typically asynchronously, meaning on your own time. Some courses or some classes in each course in any given term will be synchronous, in which students and the instructor gather at the same time, but for the most part, all courses are asynchronous. We offer a Master's of Science in Education degree, which is a 36 credit degree, comprising 12 classes, and I'll give you a little bit more detail on those in a bit. We also offer a graduate certificate in leadership and technology education, and the certificate is 15 credits or 5 classes. Most of our students finish between 1 and 2 years, so students enrolled in the certificate program tend to take a year, and students enrolled in the master's degree program tend to take about 2 years. We enroll students in all 3 terms at Hopkins, so in the spring, summer, and fall, students can begin their programs. Graduating from our program with a graduate degree or a certificate is really ideal for professionals who are in the K-16 space, so K-16 educators, as I mentioned, both in school and out of school, school leaders, educational technologists, professionals in higher education. So we have students who are faculty members themselves, but who are also staff in many different types of programs and departments in different higher ed institutions. Organizational leaders, so people who might be CIOs in companies or who might be leading district technology teams in state departments of education, educational consultants, and professionals in online education. We have, at the moment, 59 students, 90% of whom are part-time. Most of our students take 2 courses per term. Occasionally, with approval from their advisor, we will allow students to take 3 per term. But most, if not all, of our students are working full-time professionals, right? And are taking courses in addition to all the other aspects of their life. So most students are part-time, taking 2 courses a term. We have 37 females and 22 males, and the average age of our student body is currently 34 years old. Our students come from many different regions geographically across the United States, but we also have students in China, Saudi Arabia, Germany. We have students on different U.S. military bases throughout the world. And we have had in the past students from South and Central America and Africa as well. Oops, sorry, I muted out for a moment. Our curriculum, as I mentioned, is online, and it is housed in the Blackboard learning management system. So all courses, all work in the program is done via Blackboard. As I mentioned, most of the work is asynchronous. Students are doing it on their own time. The primary modes, the activities that you'll be doing entail, just to name a few, video lectures given by instructors or visiting professionals, interactive assignments in which students are collaborating and engaging with one another and using any number of educational technologies themselves, online discussions, synchronous and asynchronous, and quite a bit of project-based work, as I mentioned. all courses in the DALIT program will always entail a project in which students are applying the skills and concepts that they're learning as they're going through the course. And finally, as I've said, we do periodically have synchronous sessions that each term course instructors will determine in advance with students when those will be held. Okay, so here are a few examples of the types of classes that we offer in DALIT, and you can see a full accounting of these courses in the DALIT program page online. But let me tell you just a little bit about these to give you a flavor of the types of courses that you'll be taking. So Technology and the Science of Learning is a foundational course in our program, meaning it's the first course you'll take when you enroll. And in Tech and the Science of Learning, you're introduced to basic principles of cognitive science and how they can be applied to the development and evaluation of digital technologies to optimize learning and achievement. Emerging Issues in Digital Age Learning is another course that students take early on in their program. And in that course, students explore how new technologies are affecting 21st century learning environments, both positively and negatively. Designing and delivering online and blended learning environments. Students explore how educators can use online collaborative technology tools in the classroom and in professional environments so that all learners achieve at higher levels. Data-driven decision-making introduces knowledge management concepts into different educational contexts and provides an in-depth focus on data-driven decision-making in educational organizations and institutions specifically. Lastly, Technology Leadership for School Improvement. Students develop skills such as school-wide technology planning and leadership that incorporate instructional design, curriculum integration with standards, logistics of technology implementation, professional development, and evaluation. So that's just a quick overview of a few of the courses in the DALIT program. Okay, the DALIT faculty, in addition to Chris and myself, there are about 10 other instructors teaching DALIT courses, and those faculty members are, such as Chris and myself, full-time higher education faculty members in research, so engaged in scholarship, as Chris was mentioning, in educational technology, instructional design. We also have people teaching in our program who are K-12 school administrators, so principals, assistant principals. We have professional instructional designers leading our courses, and we also have several instructors who are working in different departments of the U.S. federal government. Our students who are currently in DALIT, but then also thinking about career changes as they are going through the program, are really in pretty diverse range of occupations. So that includes current classroom teachers, so teachers who are in the K-12 space, and that's about 50% of our student population at any given time. But as I mentioned, we also have faculty in higher education who are pursuing a new or different graduate line of graduate work. We have professionals in technology consulting, instructional design. We have students who are in the military, who are educators themselves, instructional designers, curriculum specialists in the military. We also have students who are curriculum specialists in the publishing industry. we have students who are engaged in media production. So either in the private space or in public broadcasting. And we also have students who work in game development.
Jim, if I may.
Sure.
I think one of the advantages of what you just described is the previous slide talked about some of the faculty and their roles. Some of them are in higher ed, some are in industry, some are instructional designers, and some are in the government. If you look at the types of careers that our students are going into, it aligns very well with the faculty and staff in the DALIT program, which means they're able to get some really good experience as well as insight in what those roles might be and what the faculty might be doing in their current positions, which are beneficial, I think, to the students to have a theoretical and real world example of what to expect.
Okay, so just to reiterate, some advantages of the program are it's completely online. What you learn in DALIT is applicable to many different organizational and professional contexts. And you have faculty, as Chris was mentioning, with significant professional experience in a range of professions. So here is an example, and let me just stress, this is an example just to give you a sense of what a typical program for a master's degree student in DALIT might look like. Now, as I mentioned earlier, obviously, students enrolled in the graduate certificate program, you would not see the same number of courses here, and you would typically see fewer terms. Students will finish in 3 terms, often 1 year. In the graduate certificate. But here you've got a typical student who's part-time, taking 2 courses a term. As you can see, they start with technology and the science of learning and emerging technologies. The starting term happens to be fall 2019 here, but as I mentioned earlier, students can start in fall, spring, or summer. This student is taking 2 courses a term, and then if you look at the end, you see these 2 advanced courses, advanced seminar and advanced applications. And those courses make up the DALIT capstone experience. So when you come to the end of your program at DALIT, you're going to have 2 big focuses. One is the creation of a professional portfolio that gives you space and gives you some coaching in bringing together and curating and reflecting on work that you've done in your time in the DALIT program. So it's both an opportunity for you to reflect on yourself as a learner and what you've learned in your time in the DALIT program, but then it's also a way for you to leave us with a full professional portfolio that you might want to share with others, either as you're looking for new work or perhaps you're just sharing with your peers or supervisors in the space where you are to give them a sense of your interests and the type of work that you're qualified to do. And the advanced applications course, that's an opportunity for students to really dive in. It almost has the flavor of an independent study in which students can use a technology or technologies and really dive into a problem space and spend some time individually thinking about the problem and how the technology with which they're working can help learners in a particular problem space.
Jim, if I may, I teach that class right now, and students really enjoy that class because it enables them to think through what they've learned through the program and apply it in a very specific context. And so it's a great opportunity to think about what you've read, projects you've done, think about the situation and context where you're located, and come up with a project that's beneficial to the job that you're in most of the time, as well as applying evidence-based techniques in a way to implement a technology intervention, which is exciting for a lot of students because they're able to apply and see what they've done over the past couple of years. Students really enjoy that class.
All right, so moving on to the application requirements. Thank you, Jim and Dr. Devers and Dr. Diamond. So the very first, at a minimum, all applicants will be required to meet the following requirements. First is the applicants must submit a completed application, which can be found on our website. Also, to submit an application, there is an $80 application fee. Priority consideration deadline is April 1st. Applications accepted after this date is based on space availability. Be sure to provide an accurate email address when you submit your application and that you check it regularly, as this is how we will communicate with you throughout the application process. You will need a current resume or CV, and you should submit 2 letters of recommendation. Next, 500-word essay must be uploaded, a 500-word essay discussing the reasons you wish to pursue a degree at Johns Hopkins School of Education, focusing on your long-term goals and how your academic program will complement those goals. Discuss the strengths and weaknesses in your academic background, as well as any additional comments that will assist in evaluating your application materials. Lastly, we need all official transcripts, including institutions you may have taken courses but did not receive a degree. Again, this is from all post-secondary institutions that you have attended. There are a few additional steps you need to take in order to complete the application process if you are an international student. You must submit a TOEFL or IELTS score. If your degree was completed outside the US, you will need to complete a course-by-course evaluation. Additional information can be found on our website. Also, please note that we do not offer I-20 part-time or online programs. Please contact the Office of International Services if you have any questions. Tuition and fees. We anticipate the tuition for the 2019-2020 academic school year will be $840 per credit, and there's also a $10 technology fee. So the total 2019-2020 base tuition cost of the program is $30,240 for 36 credits and $12,600 for the 15 credit graduate certificate. Keep in mind, this excludes textbook, course materials, graduation, technology, and registration fee. Additional fees will apply and are charged separately from tuition. We encourage you to view our tuition and fees page on our website for the most up-to-date information about tuition and fees so that you can understand the complete picture of the costs associated with becoming a student here at Johns Hopkins School of Education. If you're interested in applying for financial aid, we strongly encourage you to apply for financial aid when you start your application. Please note the priority financial aid application deadline listed on this slide. Please visit our website if you have any questions relating to financial aid. You'll find contact information for the Office of Financial Aid and details of loans and scholarships that are available. If you have any questions relating to your application, please feel free to email or call us. Also, this is the address you would use to send any supporting materials such as official transcripts. Here are additional point of contacts. For admissions, any admissions related questions, please contact Jade Marjoram. This is her email address. For program related questions, program coordinator is Kiana Napper. And then Dr. Jim Diamond, program lead, is also available to answer your questions. Thank you for attending the Digital Age Learning and Educational Technology virtual webinar. At this time, Dr. Diamond, Dr. Devers, and I would like to open up the floor for questions. Again, please type your questions in the chat box and I will read it out loud. All right, so it looks like we have some questions coming in. The very first question I have is, are there any residency requirements that would require me to travel to Johns Hopkins?
So I can answer that, Sian. The answer is no. There are no residency requirements for the program at this time.
Okay, thank you. And the next question is this program accredited or follows standards of accreditation by a specialized council or organization?
Good question. Yes, DALIT is accredited, and our program learning objectives are aligned to an organization called ISTE, I-S-T-E, so the International Society for Technology and Education, which is a large body of professionals comprising instructional designers, educational technologists, educators, educational leaders, who over the last several years have been establishing standards for technology integration for educators, but also standards for leaders in education spaces in order to set visions and create pathways for effective technology integration into their organization. So our courses are aligned to those standards, and in fact, the work, students' work products, so before I mentioned a portfolio, some of the products that students will curate in that portfolio are also aligned to the ISTE learning standards. It's also worth noting that several states in the US are either in the process of modeling their own educational technology standards on the ISTE standards or have done so already.
Okay. We have our next question is, what are specific criteria you look for when accepting candidates for the program? Is it a competitive-based admissions process?
So I think we can both, I think Chris and I can both speak to that question. So let me give you my thoughts, and then Chris can add his. So yes, it is a competitive program. We don't admit all of the students to our program. As Sian mentioned, the requirements obviously are your submitting transcripts, letters of reference, and essay. We are interested in students' undergraduate programs, so we're interested in knowing whether you have a history of courses or program that relate to the broad field of educational technology. And that's not narrowly defined, but we're certainly interested in understanding what it is that students have been doing in their academic past and what connects that to their interest in our program. We're very interested in knowing about your professional experiences and the extent to which you are already in a space, in a professional space, in which you are engaged with educational technology. But we're also interested in knowing about spaces you might be looking to moving into when you leave our graduate program. So we're interested in learning about these things through your essay and through your letters of reference. Chris, what do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I agree with Jim. I think something I look for when I read these, and Jim and I read all of these, applications are a well-rounded individual. I think we look at, he mentioned the type of courses that they took at their undergraduate institution, current position that they are. I think we look at the essay that they write, as well as the letters of recommendation, trying to understand what attracts a student to Hopkins, and do we feel, given what we see, that it is a good fit for the student coming here, because we want our students to be successful, and fit is a big part of that. So I think we look generally at all the pieces combined together. Is, do we think they will fit well in the Hopkins environment, do well in the online environment, and will provide them an education that will help them go where that student would like to go at the end.
All right, so the next question from Yuli we have is a GRE score needed for the application? So Yuli, GRE score is not required for both the master's or the graduate certificate program. All right, our next question from Lauren is, I'm interested in pursuing this degree to get a career in instructional design. Do the professors update their materials regularly to stay UTD with technology and changes in the industry?
So I think UTD is up to date.
Yeah, up to date, sorry. Yeah.
If I'm up to date.
Yes, up to date.
So the answer, thank you, Lauren. It's a good question. The answer is emphatically yes. So as Chris and I both mentioned, an important part of this program is that you have instructors who themselves are working professionals in educational technology, in curriculum design, in the broad world of education. And these are people who are constantly engaging with new technologies. And thinking about what roles new technologies will play in learning spaces. So instructors are updating syllabi and courses every semester, every couple of years. Our entire program is overhauled, meaning each course is started anew in order to reflect changes in the educational technology environment itself and our understanding of it. Our understanding of our students' needs as professionals, how their needs are changing. Our program needs to reflect that. So yes, our program is very much up to date and very much in touch with changes in industry.
Okay, great. We have time for a couple more questions. Our next question is, as a current instructional designer in the corporate environment, I'm interested in how the focus of the program would meet my needs. How would you describe the balance of the program's focus on traditional education application versus corporate training or design?
This is an excellent question, and I'm going to give a brief answer now, but I think Catherine is the one who asked this. I would be happy to actually talk about this one-on-one if you like, Catherine. So let me know. You can send me an email. Each course has a balance in the focus on what you're calling traditional education application, which I'm going to assume, it may not be right, but I'm going to assume by that you mean either the K-12 space or pre-K-12 space, or perhaps informal education. In addition to a focus on adult education, right? So we have students who are in corporate training and design, but it's worth emphasizing DALIT is not a training program, right? So if you as a professional are somebody who's interested in the very particular area of something like corporate training, DALIT is not going to be a great match. But this is why I think it's worthy of a conversation between us so I can hear more about your specific interests. So there is a balance between traditional K-12 and adult ed, but the balance is probably a little off-center, leaning toward the K-12 or actually the K-16 space. And I hope I've answered your question, but if not, please do get in touch.
Our next question, what would a full-time course load look like?
So a full-time course load. So let me start. We don't ever have students taking 4 courses a term. The most we will have for students in the master's degree program, and I've not yet seen a student in the graduate certificate program, but the most courses we'll have a student taking in a term is 3. So in theory, although I've not seen this done, but in theory, if you were taking 3 courses a term, you could be done with this program in 1 academic year plus a semester. So a little over 12 months. I think, and so you could call that full time. I think a more accurate depiction of somebody at a quote unquote full time pace, it would really be a year and a half. But as I say, really the vast majority of our students are not going through full time, which is not, I don't discourage it necessarily. It just depends on your life, your professional life, what you have going on outside of work, and how you can balance that with the demands of a rigorous graduate program.
All right, so we have time for 2 more questions. And the next question is, would you consider the program suitable for individuals with more of a technology background as opposed to education?
Chris, do you want to have a crack at that, or would you like me to answer it?
I'll crack at it. I think it's probably pertinent to both, to be honest. I think Jim mentioned before, we lean a little more heavily in the K-20 space because that's more of our population. But I think there's room for both sides, because what we talk about and the way projects are designed typically allow for students to have a lot of input on the project, so that they feel like what they're working on and how they're applying what they're learning is applicable to where they are. So I would argue that each type of student could be successful and feel like the program was beneficial for them because the way it's designed. I think part of that has to do with the classes, and part of it has to do with the fact that we want students to work on projects and apply what they're doing in the context of where they are and what they come with to the program.
And our very last question is, are synchronous meetings required for the coursework?
They are not. They are strongly encouraged, right? So we understand as a program and as a school of education that a big reason that people enroll in online programs is that, in fact, they have many other things going on. And it is an attractive feature of online programs that they are asynchronous. However, we also know that having opportunities to collaborate and talk and see each other in real time are very effective ways to build community, to build trust, to build modes of communication between one another. And we try to do that through a combination of synchronous meetings and asynchronous meetings. As I've mentioned, the majority of courses are going to be asynchronous. You are occasionally going to have a synchronous course. You will not be required. You will be strongly encouraged. And these courses, I beg your pardon, these sessions are offered through Zoom, typically. And an online web conferencing tool, and all of those are recorded, so students who are unable to attend synchronous sessions are able to view those when they have the time. And hey, Sion, you said that was the last question, but I just want to add one thing that I'm feeling a little self-conscious about.
Sure, go for it.
So, it's important to recognize, so you have 2 men presenting, two male faculty in this program. I just want to note that our faculty is roughly split down the middle. It's about 50% men and 50% women. And I just think that's important to say. I think in part because of, sort of my concerns about traditional associations with educational technology really sort of being a quote unquote male field. We have lots of women enrolled in our program, and we also have female instructors. So I just want to note that.
Thank you, Dr. Diamond. Before I end the virtual webinar, I have one quick announcement. We are taking attendance. There's one person, the name is James Pollock. We just need to know the name or email that you used to register for the webinar. We see that, on our attendance list, we're not seeing your name. So if you can get off mute and just share it with us, or even chat it in the box, or email us at SOE admissions as well too. Again, that would be great so that we can get your name or email that you registered for the webinar. Other than that, it looks like there are no more questions. Thank you again for your interest in the Johns Hopkins School of Education. We look forward to hearing from you. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. Take care.